The stars looked peaceful through the viewport of the horizon's dawn. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his transport ship, watching the blue and green planet of New Terra grow larger on the screen. He had made this journey 17 times in the past year, carrying supplies and hopeful colonists to humanity's first world beyond Earth. Each trip felt like a small miracle. Humans were finally living among the stars. Jake checked the cargo manifest on his tablet. Medical supplies, construction equipment, and seeds for the new agricultural domes. Nothing exciting, but everything essential. In the passenger section, 200 colonists prepared for landing. Farmers, engineers, teachers, and doctors. People who wanted to build something new. People like his sister Laura, who had arrived on New Terra 6 months ago to work on the hydroponic systems. "Captain, we're receiving clearance from Colony Control," said his co-pilot, Maria Santos. "Landing pad 7 is ready for us," Jake smiled. "Take us down, Maria. Let's get these people home." But before Maria could respond, the sensor board exploded with warnings. Red lights flashed across every console. The computer screamed alerts that made Jake's blood run cold. 30 unknown ships had just appeared in orbit. Large ships. Military ships, what the hell? Maria's fingers flew across her controls. "Captain, those aren't human vessels. The computer is identifying them as Draxian warships and Krelvar cruisers, and, oh god, there are 12 different species represented in that fleet." Jake's mind raced. The Galactic Council. Humanity had made limited contact with them over the past 3 years. The meetings had been cold but not hostile. The Council seemed to view humans as insignificant newcomers, barely worth their attention. So why were their warships here? "Hail them," Jake ordered. "Ask them what they want," Maria tried. She tried every frequency, every protocol humanity had learned from their limited diplomatic exchanges. Nothing. The Council fleet ignored every attempt at communication. Instead, they moved into attack formation around New Terra. "Captain, they're powering weapons," Maria said, her voice shaking. "All of them. They're targeting the colony." Time seemed to slow down. Jake watched the tactical display as the Council ships positioned themselves in a perfect bombardment pattern. This was not a warning. This was not a show of force. This was an execution. "Get us away from the planet," Jake shouted. "Full power to the engines, now." The Horizon's Dawn was not a warship. She was a civilian transport with engines designed for efficiency, not speed. But Maria pushed those engines beyond their limits. The ship lurched away from New Terra, climbing desperately toward open space. Behind them, the Council fleet opened fire. Jake could only watch in horror as beams of energy struck New Terra's orbital defense platforms. The platforms were small, barely armed, designed to stop asteroids and space debris, not military assault. They exploded like fireworks against the black of space. Within 60 seconds, every single platform was gone. "The colony below was defenseless, Laura," Jake whispered. His sister was down there. 50,000 people were down there. The Council ships adjusted their aim toward the planet's surface. Jake wanted to look away but could not. He owed it to those people to witness what happened next. The warships fired in unison, coordinated bombardment that lit up New Terra's atmosphere. The colony settlements appeared on the main screen, visible from orbit because of their lights and buildings. One by one, those lights went dark. The communication channel crackled with screams and desperate calls for help. Colony Control tried to organize an evacuation, but there was nowhere to evacuate to. The underground shelters were built for storms, not military bombardment. Jake heard his sister's voice for just a moment, calling for help from the hydroponics center, then static, then nothing. The bombardment continued for 12 minutes. When it stopped, New Terra was burning. The forests were on fire. The oceans boiled where the beams had struck. The colony settlements were craters filled with molten glass. 50,000 people had been alive when Jake entered orbit. Now they were ash. "Captain, one of the Council ships is pursuing us," Maria reported. Her face was wet with tears, but her hands stayed steady on the controls. "We can't outrun them," Jake made a decision. "Shut down everything except life support and engines. Kill our transponder, make us look like debris, and keep running." The Horizon's Dawn went dark. On the sensors, she would look like a damaged vessel, possibly already destroyed. It was a desperate gamble. The Council ship followed for 10 minutes that felt like 10 hours. Then, apparently satisfied that the transport posed no threat, it turned back to rejoin the fleet. Jake watched as the Council armada finished their work. They scanned the planet's surface, probably checking for survivors. Finding none, or perhaps not caring, they aligned their ships and jumped away into faster-than-light travel. Gone as quickly as they had appeared, leaving behind only death and questions that had no answers. Set course for Earth, Jake said quietly. Best possible speed. The journey back took 3 days. 3 days in which Jake recorded everything. He compiled the sensor logs showing the Council ships appearing without warning. He saved the communication recordings, the screams and final words of 50,000 people. He captured the tactical data showing how the Council had deliberately targeted civilian centers with military-grade weapons. Everything was documented, time-stamped and verified. The Horizon's Dawn limped into Earth orbit with 200 traumatized passengers crammed into a ship built for 50. They had witnessed humanity's first colony being erased from existence. They had watched their friends and families die. Many of them sat in silence, their minds unable to process what they had seen. Earth's space control cleared them for emergency landing at the main spaceport in Geneva. Within an hour of touching down, Jake was in a conference room with military officers and government officials. He played them the recordings. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. They just watched as New Terra died over and over again on the screen. General Claire Davis was the first to break the silence. She was the head of Earth's defensive forces, a position that had been mostly ceremonial until this moment. This was not a mistake, she said. This was not a misunderstanding or a cultural confusion. This was a calculated military strike against a civilian target. This was genocide, Jake nodded. They knew exactly what they were doing, General. That fleet represented 12 species. The entire Galactic Council was involved. They came together to kill us. Why? Someone asked. We've done nothing to them. We've barely expanded beyond our own solar system. Why would they do this? Jake had spent 3 days thinking about that question. Fear, he said. They're afraid of us. Humans went from first flight to faster-than-light travel in just over a century. We adapt fast. We innovate fast. Maybe they decided to destroy us before we became a real threat. Then they succeeded, another official said bitterly. We have no military to speak of. Our ships are transports and research vessels. What can we possibly do against a force like that? General Davis stood up. Her eyes were hard as steel. We can make them regret it, she said. We can show them that attacking humanity was the worst mistake they ever made. We can build. We can adapt. And we can hit back so hard they'll wish they never heard the word human. The room fell silent again. Everyone understood what she was suggesting. War. Total war against an enemy with technology and numbers far beyond humanity's capacity. It seemed impossible. But Jake thought about his sister Laura. He thought about the 50,000 people who had died without warning, without mercy, without even knowing why. He thought about how humanity had reached out to the stars with open hands, seeking friendship and knowledge. And he thought about how the Galactic Council had answered that gesture with fire. When do we start? Jake asked. General Davis smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. It was the smile of someone who had just declared war on the galaxy. We already have, she said. President Carter is addressing the world right now. Every factory, every laboratory, every resource humanity possesses is being converted to military production. The Council struck first, but humanity's retribution will hit harder, much harder. Jake looked out the window at Earth, beautiful and blue and vulnerable. Somewhere up there in the dark, the Galactic Council was celebrating their easy victory. They thought humanity was broken. They thought the threat was eliminated. They had no idea what was coming for them. President Helen Carter stood before the cameras with the images of New Terra burning behind her. Every screen on Earth showed the same broadcast. Every human being alive watched as their leader addressed them with a voice that did not shake, even though her hands gripped the podium hard enough to turn her knuckles white. 6 days ago, the Galactic Council attacked our colony at New Terra without warning, without provocation and without mercy. 50,000 men, women, and children were killed in a deliberate act of genocide. The Council believed they were eliminating a threat. Instead, they have awakened something they cannot comprehend. As of this moment, humanity is at war. Every resource, every mind, every factory will serve one purpose. We will have justice for New Terra. We will have retribution. The speech lasted 7 minutes. When it ended, humanity began to transform. Admiral Chris Bennett had been planning to retire. He was 62 years old, a career officer in Earth's small defensive fleet. He had lost his son Peter in the New Terra massacre. Peter had been a school teacher, helping children learn to read in the new colony. Now Chris stood in the war room of Earth's military headquarters, staring at star charts and fleet dispositions, planning how to destroy an enemy that outnumbered humanity 100 to 1. "It's impossible," said one of his senior officers. "The Council has thousands of ships. We have maybe 200 vessels, and most of those are transports and cargo haulers. We can't win this." "Then we don't fight fair," said a voice from the back of the room. Everyone turned to look at Lieutenant Commander Amy Sullivan. She was 29 years old, brilliant, and had a reputation for thinking in ways that made traditional military officers uncomfortable. She walked to the holographic display and manipulated it with quick gestures. "Look at the Council's strength," Amy said. "Yes, they have thousands of ships, but those ships are spread across 12 different species, dozens of systems, and centuries of military tradition that values honor and formal combat. They fight the way they've always fought because it's worked for them. They're predictable." Admiral Bennett studied her. "And we're not?" "We can't afford to be," Amy replied. "We don't have enough ships to fight them head-on. But we're human. We adapt, we innovate, we cheat when we have to. The Council expects us to either surrender or defend Earth, and wait for them to come finish us off. We do neither. We attack first, and we attack in ways they never anticipate." The room erupted in arguments. Half the officers thought Amy was brilliant. The other half thought she was insane. Admiral Bennett listened to both sides, then made his decision. "Sullivan, you're now my chief strategic officer. Start planning how we're going to hurt them." Across Earth, the mobilization accelerated beyond anything in human history. Factories that made cars started making armor plating. Companies that built satellites began producing weapon systems. Scientists who had spent years researching peaceful technologies were now weaponizing everything they knew. Dr. Richard Hayes led a team at the Advanced Propulsion Laboratory. Before the war, they had been developing better engines for exploration vessels. Now they gathered around a holographic model of a fusion drive, trying to figure out how to turn it into a bomb large enough to crack a planet. "The energy output is there," Richard said, pointing at the calculations. "If we remove all the safety systems and overload the containment field, a single drive core could produce an explosion equivalent to 20,000 nuclear weapons. The question is delivery." His assistant, Lisa Park, highlighted a section of the design. "We mount them on unmanned drones. Fast, small, hard to detect. They get close to the target and boom. No warning, no defense." Richard hesitated. "That's a planet-killer weapon, Lisa. We'd be creating something that could wipe out billions." "The Council already did that to 50,000 of us," Lisa said quietly. "And they were planning to do it to all of Earth. We need to make sure they understand that attacking humanity has consequences they can't survive." The work continued day and night. Every lab, every university, every research center contributed. Humanity had always been good at finding new ways to kill each other. Now they turned that talent outward, toward the stars. Jake Morrison stood in the shipyard above Earth and looked at the vessel being constructed in front of him, the Retribution's Edge. She was humanity's first true warship built from the ground up for combat. Sleek, fast, and armed with weapons that barely existed a year ago, and she was his to command. "Beautiful, isn't she?" said a voice beside him. Jake turned to see General Davis floating in the zero gravity of the observation deck. She looked tired. Everyone looked tired these days. The entire planet was running on determination and caffeine. "She's a weapon," Jake said. "Beautiful isn't the word I'd use." "No," Davis agreed. "But necessary is." The Council thinks they won. They think humanity is cowering on Earth, waiting for the next attack. Instead, we're building a fleet that's going to tear through their territory like a shark through a school of fish. Jake studied the warship. "My crew is ready, General. Survivors from New Terra, mostly. People who lost everything. They're angry, and they're focused." "When do we launch?" 3 weeks, Davis replied. "The Retribution's Edge and 20 other strike carriers will form the first attack group. Your target is the Draxian fuel depot at Kepler Station. Intelligence says it supplies 1/3 of the Council's fleet in this sector. You destroy it and you cripple their ability to operate in human space. And after that," Davis smiled that cold smile again, "after that we keep hitting them. Supply depots, communication relays, repair facilities, anything that keeps their military running. We're not trying to conquer them, Jake. We're trying to make them bleed. We're trying to make them understand that they can't attack humanity without paying a price so high it breaks them. Across the solar system, other preparations continued. Danny Cross led a team of intelligence officers on a mission that everyone agreed was probably suicide. They took a captured Council transport, modified it to look like an independent merchant vessel, and jumped into Council space. Their job was to map enemy positions, steal communication codes, and gather information that could save human lives. Danny's team consisted of 6 people who volunteered knowing they might never come home. They posed as traders from a neutral species, visiting Council ports and listening to gossip in alien bars. It was terrifying work. One mistake, one wrong word, and they would be exposed and executed. But the information they gathered was priceless. The Council is complacent, Danny reported back to Earth on encrypted channels. They've been the dominant power for so long that they've forgotten how to fight a real war. Their ships are powerful, but their tactics are ancient. They line up in formation and exchange fire until one side retreats. They have honor codes about targeting civilians and supply lines. They fight like knights in a tournament, not like soldiers trying to win. Admiral Bennett read the reports and felt a grim satisfaction. Then we're going to teach them how modern war works. Amy, show me your attack plans. Amy Sullivan spread out the tactical display. It showed simultaneous strikes across 12 different Council systems. Each attack was designed to destroy infrastructure while avoiding civilian casualties. Humanity was angry, but they were not monsters. They would hurt the Council's military, not murder innocent aliens. We hit them everywhere at once, Amy explained. They'll have to split their forces to respond. And while they're confused and disorganized, we keep hitting them. We don't give them time to adapt or regroup. We stay aggressive, stay unpredictable, and stay ahead of them. What about casualties? Admiral Bennett asked. Our casualties, I mean. Amy hesitated. High, she admitted. Maybe 30% losses in the first wave. But if we don't attack, if we wait for them to come to us, our losses will be 100%. We die either way, Admiral. This way. At least we hurt them first. Bennett looked around the room at his officers. He saw determination on every face. These people had lost friends, family, and innocence in the New Terra massacre. They were not looking for revenge. They were looking for justice. There was a difference, even if it was a thin one. Then we proceed, Bennett said. Send the order to all ships. Operation First Blood begins in 3 weeks. Humanity strikes back. The final 2 weeks before the offensive were a blur of activity. Ships were completed and tested. Weapons were calibrated. Crews trained until they could execute combat maneuvers in their sleep. Earth's orbital space became a massive military staging area, filled with warships that had not existed a year ago. Jake Morrison gathered his crew on the Retribution's edge the night before deployment. 200 men and women who had volunteered for the most dangerous mission in the fleet. He looked at their faces and saw his own pain reflected back at him. They had all lost someone at New Terra. Tomorrow we launch, Jake said simply. Our mission is to destroy the Kepler Station fuel depot. It will be heavily defended. Some of us won't be coming back, but everyone on this ship knows why we're doing this. The Council struck first without warning or mercy. They killed 50,000 people who never hurt anyone. Now we show them that humanity remembers. We show them that attacking us has consequences. We show them that the prey has teeth, the crew cheered. It was not a happy sound. It was the sound of wolves. Kepler Station hung in space like a massive steel flower. Dozens of fuel storage tanks clustered around a central hub, supplying energy to 1/3 of the Draxian fleet in this sector of the galaxy. Over 500 aliens worked on the station, mostly technicians and logistics personnel. It was not a military base exactly, but it was what kept the military running. Admiral Bennett had been clear in his orders. This was the target. This was where humanity would announce that the war was not over. Jake Morrison brought the Retribution's edge out of faster-than-light travel exactly 17 kilometers from the station. In space combat, that was point-blank range. The Council sensors did not even have time to identify the human ships before the attack began. All weapons. Fire at will, Jake ordered calmly. The Retribution's edge carried weapons that had not existed 2 years ago. Particle beam cannons that could slice through armor like a knife through paper. Missile pods loaded with warheads designed to create cascading explosions in fuel storage tanks. And drone launchers that released hundreds of small automated weapons, each one capable of thinking and acting on its own. The attack was perfectly coordinated. Jake's crew had practiced this exact scenario 200 times in simulations. They knew where to aim, when to fire, and how to maximize damage. The Council defenders had no such preparation. They scrambled to respond, but it was too late. The first fuel tank exploded in a ball of white fire, then the second, then 3 more in quick succession. Each explosion triggered sympathetic detonations in nearby tanks. Within 90 seconds, half of Kepler Station was burning wreckage tumbling through space. Council ships powering up, reported Lieutenant Kevin Wright from the tactical station. 4 Draxian escorts and 2 Krelvar cruisers. They're moving to engage. Let them come, Jake said. He had been trained by Amy Sullivan's new tactical doctrine. Human ships did not sit still and trade fire with the enemy. They moved, adapted, and used every advantage available. The Retribution's edge dove under the station, using the burning fuel tanks as cover. The Council ships followed, their weapons firing in perfect formation. It was textbook Council tactics, the kind that had won battles for centuries. But Jake was not interested in fighting a textbook battle. Release the drone swarm, he ordered. 2,000 small drones erupted from the Retribution's edge like angry hornets. Each one was barely a meter across, carrying just enough explosive to damage but not destroy. The Council ships ignored them at first, focusing their heavy weapons on the human carrier. That was their mistake. The drones swarmed over the Council vessels, attaching themselves to weapon ports, sensor arrays, and engine exhausts. Then they exploded, not with enough force to destroy the ships, but with enough to blind them, deafen them, and cripple their ability to fight effectively. The carefully organized Council formation fell apart into chaos. Now, Jake said quietly. The Retribution's edge swung around and opened fire with every weapon. At this range, against blinded and confused targets, the result was devastating. 2 of the Draxian escorts exploded outright. The others tried to retreat but ran into each other in the confusion. The Krelvar cruisers managed to get their shields up, but Jake had expected that. He fired the new kinetic penetrators. Simple chunks of metal accelerated to a fraction of light speed. They punched through the shields like they were not even there. 4 minutes after the battle started, it was over. 6 Council ships drifted as expanding debris. Kepler Station was 80% destroyed, its fuel reserves burning in a fire that would be visible from nearby planets. And the Retribution's edge had taken only minor damage. Set course for the rally point, Jake ordered, and make sure one of those Council ships escaped. I want them to report what happened here. His communications officer looked confused. Sir, wouldn't it be better to destroy them all? Jake shook his head. We're not just fighting a war, Lieutenant. We're sending a message. The Council needs to know that humanity is not cowering on Earth. We're out here. We're hunting. And we're very, very good at it. Across Council territory, 11 other human strike groups launched similar attacks. The pattern was the same everywhere. Human ships appeared without warning, struck with devastating precision, and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. Supply depots, communication relays, repair facilities all went up in flames. The Council's carefully organized military infrastructure began to crumble. At the Vex Prime shipyard, Lieutenant Commander Amy Sullivan led the most daring raid of the entire operation. She took a team of 20 soldiers on a captured Council shuttle, posing as maintenance workers coming to repair a faulty reactor. The shipyard security never questioned them. Why would they? Humanity was supposed to be defeated, broken, hiding in their home system. Amy's team walked through the massive orbital facility with fake identification badges and tools that looked legitimate. They reached the main construction bay where 12 new warships were being built. The soldiers split up, each one carrying a backpack full of explosives carefully designed to look like toolkits. We have 20 minutes, Amy whispered into her comm. Plant the charges and get back to the shuttle. If anyone asks questions, stick to the script. We're just workers doing our jobs. It almost worked perfectly. Amy's team placed explosives on critical support structures throughout the shipyard. They were heading back to the shuttle when a Draxian security officer stopped them for a random inspection. The officer looked at their badges, then at their faces, then back at the badges with growing suspicion. You don't look like Vex workers, the officer said slowly, his hand moving toward his weapon. Amy smiled pleasantly and shot him with a stunner hidden in her sleeve. The officer dropped, unconscious but alive. Humanity was at war, but Amy had no interest in killing some random guard just doing his job. They dragged him into a storage closet and ran for the shuttle. Go, 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 Amy shouted as her team piled through the airlock. The shuttle pilot, Officer Nick Barnes, already had the engines hot. They launched from the shipyard just as alarms started blaring throughout the facility. Detonation in 30 seconds, Amy said calmly, watching the timer on her remote. Let's make sure we're far enough away to survive the blast. The explosives went off in a carefully choreographed sequence. The shipyard's structural supports failed first, causing the entire facility to twist and buckle. Then the fusion reactors overloaded, adding their energy to the destruction. 12 nearly completed warships tore themselves apart as the construction bays collapsed around them. The entire facility, representing years of work and billions in resources, became a cloud of shrapnel. Holy hell, Nick whispered, staring at the destruction. We just set their ship production back by years. Amy nodded, already typing on her tactical computer. And we're not done yet. Nick, can you get us close to their communication satellite? The one that coordinates fleet movements across this sector. Amy, that's insane. That's war, Amy replied. Get us there or get us home. Your choice. Nick got them there. Amy uploaded a virus into the satellite systems, a piece of malicious code written by Earth's best programmers. It would spread through the Council's military network, causing havoc for months. False orders, corrupted data, communication failures at critical moments. It was not flashy like explosions, but it would kill Council soldiers just as effectively. The shuttle jumped back to human space with Council fighters pursuing them. They made it by 5 seconds. The enemy ships breaking off pursuit at the border of what they still considered safe territory. Amy sat back in her chair and allowed herself one moment of relief. They had survived. They had struck a massive blow, and the Council still had no idea how to fight an enemy that refused to follow the rules. In the Council chambers on the capital world of Draxus Prime, Councillor Vexithor convened an emergency session. The reptilian leader was furious, his scales flushed dark red with anger. Around him, representatives from 12 species argued in a dozen different languages. This is impossible, shouted the Krelvar ambassador. Humans were supposed to be primitive. You assured us they could not fight back. Vexthor slammed his clawed hand on the table. They are insects compared to us. Yes, they have struck a few minor blows, but they cannot sustain this. We have thousands of ships to their hundreds. We will crush them with overwhelming force, and at what cost? Asked the Vex ambassador quietly. We've lost 12 shipyards, 40 supply depots, and hundreds of vessels. Our fleet coordination is in chaos because of their computer attacks. These insects are stinging us to death, Vexthor. Then we end this, Vexthor declared. I am authorizing Admiral Krell to assemble an armada of 200 warships. We will strike at the heart of human territory. We will attack Earth itself and finish what we started. The chamber fell silent. An attack on the human homeworld. It was the ultimate escalation. But many of the Council members were tired of being humiliated by a species they had considered beneath their notice. The vote passed. Admiral Krell received his orders. The Council would end humanity once and for all. Danny Cross intercepted the Council's battle plans 3 days later. His spy network had grown beyond anyone's expectations. Aliens who were sympathetic to humanity, or just tired of the Council's corruption, fed him. Admiral Krell stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominion's Wrath, and watched 200 Council warships align in perfect formation. 7 species, 200 vessels, and the combined might of the galaxy's oldest alliance. They were here to end humanity's brief and troublesome existence. Krell felt no pleasure in the task, but he felt no hesitation either. The humans had proven more dangerous than expected. Better to eliminate them now before they became a real threat. All ships reporting ready, Admiral, said his tactical officer. We are prepared to enter the Sol system, Krell nodded. Proceed. Formation Beta 7. We will demonstrate the Council's power before we strike. Let the humans see what is coming for them. The fleet jumped into faster-than-light travel. When they emerged at the edge of Earth's solar system, Krell expected to see human ships scrambling to defend their homeworld. Instead, he saw nothing. The system appeared abandoned except for automated distress beacons broadcasting from Earth orbit. Scan for ships, Krell ordered. The humans must be hiding somewhere. His sensors officer worked the controls, searching. I'm detecting minimal activity, Admiral. A few defense platforms around Earth, but they appear damaged. Some debris fields near the asteroid belt and Jupiter. No active warships that I can detect, Krell frowned. This was wrong. The humans had fought viciously across Council space for months. They had destroyed shipyards, raided supply depots, and killed thousands of Council soldiers. Where were their warships now? Perhaps they fled, suggested his second-in-command. Perhaps they abandoned Earth rather than face our armada. Or perhaps they're cowards, Krell replied. No matter. We have our orders. All ships advance to Earth. Prepare for orbital bombardment. The Council fleet moved forward in that perfect formation. 200 ships aligned in a display of overwhelming force. They passed the orbit of Mars. Then the asteroid belt. Still no sign of human resistance. The distress beacons from Earth grew louder. Automated voices calling for help in a dozen human languages. What Krell did not know was that Jake Morrison watched from inside an asteroid. His ship, the Retribution's Edge, powered down to minimal systems. Around him in the belt, 15 other human strike carriers hid in the same way, their hulls coated with special materials that made them invisible to Council sensors. They had been waiting for 3 days, cramped and uncomfortable, knowing that if they were discovered too early, the entire plan would collapse. Council fleet approaching our position, whispered Lieutenant Wright. They're not scanning carefully. They think we've run away. Jake watched the tactical display. 200 Council ships passing right by his hiding spot, completely unaware. He felt a grim satisfaction. Amy Sullivan had been right. The Council was so confident, so certain of their superiority, that they did not even consider the possibility of an ambush. Further into the system, near Jupiter's massive radiation belts, another 20 human vessels hid in the magnetic chaos. The same stealth technology made them invisible, ghosts waiting to strike. And around Earth itself, those defense platforms that looked damaged and weak were actually humanity's newest and most powerful weapons, deliberately disguised to look helpless. Admiral Bennett watched from Earth's command center, monitoring every ship in the fleet. President Carter stood beside him, her face pale but determined. They had committed everything to this plan. Every warship, every weapon, every soldier. If it failed, Earth would fall within hours. The Council fleet is approaching Earth orbit, reported the sensor officer. They're slowing down, probably to get a good look at the planet before they destroy it. Bennett waited. Timing was everything. If he sprung the trap too early, the Council ships could retreat and regroup. Too late, and they might actually start bombarding Earth. He watched the display as 200 enemy vessels reached their planned position, completely surrounding Earth in a sphere of overwhelming firepower. Now, Bennett said quietly, around Earth, the defense platforms came to life. What the Council thought were damaged. Weak installations suddenly revealed themselves as fully operational battle stations armed with weapons technology the Council had never seen. They opened fire simultaneously, catching the Council fleet in a crossfire they never anticipated. At the same moment, Jake Morrison powered up the Retribution's Edge. All ships, this is Morrison. Attack pattern Alpha. Hit them from behind and don't stop until they're debris or running. 16 human carriers emerged from the asteroid belt like predators leaping from cover. Their weapons were hot, their crews were ready, and they struck the rear of the Council formation with devastating force. The Council ships, caught completely by surprise, tried to turn and respond but found themselves trapped between Earth's defenses in front and the human carriers behind. Release the swarm. Amy Sullivan ordered from her command ship near Jupiter. Thousands of automated drones activated throughout the Council fleet. Amy had spent months seeding Council space with these weapons, disguising them as debris, damaged satellites, and destroyed ship components. The Council had ignored them, never realizing they were bombs waiting for a signal. Now that signal came and the drones exploded throughout the enemy formation. The Council fleet's perfect formation, their greatest strength, became their worst vulnerability. Ships collided with each other trying to evade the drone attacks. Their overlapping shields interfered with each other. Their weapon solutions crossed, forcing them to hold fire or risk hitting their own vessels. What should have been an organized assault became chaos. Admiral Krell shouted orders, trying to restore control. All ships, break by species groups. Draxian vessels, form on me. Other species, follow your squadron leaders. But it was too late for coordinated tactics. The human attack was too fast, too aggressive, too unpredictable. Jake Morrison led his group in a slashing assault that destroyed Admiral Krell's flagship within minutes. The Dominion's wrath exploded in a brilliant flash, taking the Council's command structure with it. Without their admiral, without communication, without any plan for this kind of warfare, the Council fleet fragmented. Each species reverted to their own tactics, their own priorities. The Draxians tried to form a defensive sphere. The Krelvar attempted to break through to open space. The Vex ships actually started fighting each other over who should take command. The battle raged for 18 hours. It was the largest space engagement in galactic history, and it was nothing like either side had expected. The Council thought they would destroy a weak enemy. Instead, they found themselves fighting for survival against an opponent who refused to follow any rules they understood. Lieutenant Commander Amy Sullivan directed the battle like a deadly chess game. Every time a Council group tried to organize, she sent drones or fighters to break them up. Every time they tried to retreat, she cut off their escape routes. She gave them no time to think, no space to breathe, no chance to use their numerical advantage effectively. By the 10th hour, the Council fleet was shattered. Over 130 warships drifted as wreckage or burning hulls. The survivors fought in desperate clusters, no longer trying to destroy Earth but simply trying to escape. Admiral Bennett watched the tactical display and felt no triumph, only grim determination to finish what the Council had started. "Let them run," Bennett ordered. "Don't pursue beyond the orbit of Mars. We've made our point." The remaining Council ships jumped to faster-than-light travel in ragged groups, their perfect formation a distant memory. They left behind wreckage, bodies, and the shattered remains of their confidence. The galaxy's dominant power had been broken by a species they had considered primitive. Jake Morrison brought the Retribution's edge back to Earth orbit, his ship scarred but intact. He had lost friends in the battle, good people who had volunteered to defend their home. But they had won. Against impossible odds, humanity had won. President Carter addressed the planet again that night. This time, her voice carried not just determination but hope. "Today, humanity proved that we will not be conquered. The Galactic Council came to our home with overwhelming force, and we sent them running. We did not seek this war. We did not want to become warriors. But we will defend ourselves with everything we have." In the wreckage of the Council fleet, Danny Cross and his intelligence team searched for survivors and recovered communication logs. What they found made Danny's blood run cold. He encrypted the information and sent it directly to Admiral Bennett with a priority flag. "Sir, we have a problem. A big one." Bennett read the recovered files and felt his hands start shaking. The Council had authorized the use of planet-killer weapons. 3 of them, ancient doomsday devices that had been banned for centuries. They were being prepared at Draxus Prime, the Draxian homeworld, under Counselor Vex Thor's direct orders. "If they can't beat us, they're going to erase us," Bennett said quietly. He called an emergency meeting with President Carter, Jake Morrison, Amy Sullivan, and the senior staff. "How long until these weapons are ready?" Carter asked. Danny Cross answered via video link. "Best estimate, 2 weeks. Maybe less if they rush the work. These things are designed to ignite a planet's atmosphere and render it lifeless. Earth won't just be destroyed. It will be sterilized." The room fell silent. They had won the battle but not the war. The Council. The war room on Earth was silent as President Helen Carter studied the holographic display of Draxus Prime. The Draxian homeworld hung there, beautiful and blue, home to 15 billion aliens who had no idea their leaders were preparing to commit genocide. Around the planet, 250 Council warships maintained defensive positions. On the surface, in a military complex near the northern pole, 3 planet-killer weapons were being prepared for launch toward Earth. "We're talking about striking the heart of Council civilization," Carter said quietly. "If we destroy those weapons, we'll be killing Draxian military personnel, maybe civilians near the base." Admiral Chris Bennett understood her hesitation. They stood at a moral crossroads. Humanity could fortify Earth's defenses and hope to stop the planet killers when they came. Or they could strike first and eliminate the threat at its source. One choice was defensive, safer morally. The other was aggressive and possibly made them no better than the enemy. Jake Morrison spoke up from where he stood near the holographic display. He had not slept properly in weeks. None of them had. "President Carter, I watched my sister die at New Terra. 50,000 people who never hurt anyone killed in 12 minutes. I want revenge. God knows I want it. But we need to be better than them." Amy Sullivan nodded. "Jake's right. If we destroy Draxus Prime, if we kill billions of civilians, we become exactly what they feared. We prove that humanity is a threat that deserves to be eliminated. But we can be precise. We can destroy the weapons without massacring innocents. Danny Cross joining via secure link from Council Space added his perspective. My team has confirmed the location of the Planet Killer facility. It's isolated 40 kilometers from the nearest city. The weapons are in underground bunkers with the launch systems above ground. If we're surgical about it, we can take out the facility and minimize civilian casualties. Bennett considered their options. Even if we're precise, this will be the largest military operation in human history. We're taking 87 warships into the most heavily defended system in the galaxy. Our casualties will be massive. Maybe 70% of our fleet won't come home. Then we make sure it counts, Jake said firmly. We end this war. We show the Council that humanity fights for justice, not genocide. We destroy those weapons and the military leadership that authorized them, but we spare the civilians. We prove we're better than they are. President Carter made her decision. Proceed with Operation Final Justice. Admiral Bennett, you have full authorization. Destroy the planet killers and eliminate the Council's military command. But civilian casualties are to be minimized at all costs. We're fighting to survive, not to become monsters. The Terran Retribution fleet assembled in Earth orbit. 87 warships, most of them damaged from the recent battle, prepared for one last mission. The crews were exhausted, traumatized, and mourning lost friends. But they were also determined. They had come this far. They would finish it. Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Retribution's edge and addressed his crew. We're jumping into hell tomorrow. Draxus Prime is defended by more ships than we've ever faced. A lot of us won't be coming home, but we're doing this for a reason. We're ending the threat to Earth. We're making sure that 50,000 dead at New Terra didn't die for nothing, and we're showing the galaxy that humanity can be fierce without being cruel. His crew stood straighter. They were ready. Amy Sullivan gathered the commanders of the assault groups for final briefing. The main fleet engages the Council defenses. That will draw their attention and their ships, while they're focused on the space battle. I'm taking a small team to the surface. We infiltrate the Planet Killer facility, disable the weapons, and get out. Simple. Nothing about this is simple, said Captain Greg Foster, commander of the assault carrier Vengeance. But we'll buy you the time you need. Just make sure those weapons never launch. Danny Cross and his intelligence team would join Amy's surface mission. They had spent months learning Council languages, customs, and technology. Now that knowledge would be put to the ultimate test. They would land on the enemy homeworld, walk through military installations, and destroy weapons that could end Earth's existence. The fleet jumped to Draxus Prime. The transition from faster-than-light travel back to normal space always felt disorienting. But this time it was terrifying. They emerged directly into the middle of the Council's defensive fleet. 250 warships immediately turned to engage the human forces. All ships attack Pattern Omega, Admiral Bennett ordered. We're not here to conquer. We're here to break through. The human fleet formed into a spearhead formation, the toughest ships in front, and drove straight toward the planet. The Council defenders tried to stop them, forming walls of ships and unleashing everything they had. The battle was brutal and chaotic. Ships on both sides exploded, collided, and burned. The space around Draxus Prime became a graveyard of wreckage and debris. Jake Morrison fought the Retribution's edge through the Council lines like a boxer punching through a crowd. His ship took hit after hit, armor melting, shields failing, but he kept moving forward. Around him, human vessels died one by one, sacrificing themselves to open a path to the planet. We're losing too many ships, someone shouted over the command channel. Keep pushing, Bennett responded. Sullivan needs time to reach the surface. We hold here no matter what it costs. While the space battle raged, Amy Sullivan's team descended to Draxus Prime in a captured Council shuttle. The planet's surface defenses were focused on the massive battle in orbit, not on one small shuttle that appeared to be evacuating personnel. They landed at a military spaceport just 15 kilometers from the Planet Killer facility. Remember, we look like Vex workers doing emergency maintenance, Amy reminded her team. They wore stolen uniforms and carried forged identification. Confident, not suspicious. We belong here. Danny Cross led them through the spaceport and into a ground transport. The military traffic was chaotic. Everyone focused on the battle above. Nobody questioned a maintenance team heading toward the weapons facility. They drove past guard checkpoints with Danny speaking flawless Draxian, complaining about having to work during a battle. The Planet Killer facility was a massive underground complex with launch silos visible on the surface. 3 weapons, each one capable of destroying Earth, sat in those silos awaiting final activation codes. Amy's team approached the main entrance where Draxian soldiers stood guard. "We're here for the emergency reactor check," Danny told the guards in perfect Draxian. "The battle above is causing power fluctuations. We need to make sure the weapons don't malfunction." The guards checked their credentials. The forged papers were perfect, created by the best human intelligence experts. One guard looked suspicious, but his companion was more worried about the battle. They were waved through. Inside the facility, Amy's team split up. 3 soldiers would handle the guards in the control room. Danny and 2 others would upload the virus into the facility's computers. Amy and Sergeant Kyle Roberts, her demolition expert, would reach the weapons themselves and ensure they could never be used. The control room takeover was quick and clean. The Draxian technicians found themselves facing weapons before they understood what was happening. They were secured with zip ties, not killed. Humanity was at war, but these were technicians, not soldiers. Danny uploaded the virus into the facility's computer system. It would spread through the Council's military network, corrupting targeting data and weapons specifications for every similar installation. Even if humanity failed here, the Council would never be able to use planet killers again. Amy and Kyle reached the launch silos through maintenance tunnels. The 3 weapons sat in their cradles, massive and terrible. Kyle studied them with a professional eye. "These things are old," he muttered. "Ancient, but still functional. Give me 10 minutes and I can set charges that will destroy them without causing a nuclear detonation." "You have 8 minutes," Amy replied, watching her tactical display. "The space battle is intensifying. We need to finish and get out." Kyle worked with steady hands, placing explosive charges on critical components. The planet killers were complex devices, but he had studied their design for weeks. He knew exactly where to hit them to ensure they would never function again. Above them, Jake Morrison's Retribution's edge fought its way toward the Council command station, a massive orbital fortress where Counselor Vexathor directed the defense. The station bristled with weapons and was protected by the thickest shields in the Council fleet. But Jake had a score to settle. "All power to forward weapons," Jake ordered. "I want that station destroyed." His crew was battered, exhausted, and running on determination alone. The Retribution's edge had taken so much damage that half her systems were offline. But her weapons still worked. Jake lined up his shot and fired everything, every missile, every beam, every last weapon his ship possessed. The Council command station's shields held for almost 3 seconds. Then they failed. The station exploded in a fireball visible from the planet's surface. Counselor Vexathor died instantly, along with every member of the military council that had authorized the attack on New Terra. "Charges set," Kyle reported from the planet killer facility. "We need to leave now."